go to this mode here. And yeah, make sure it's image and wireframe selected. Alright, so now you can move it up.
These days, one can find Brandon Eang teaching desktop and multimedia production to students at Westford Academy. Though you'd never know it from his calm demeanor, Eang, a 39-year-old Lowell resident, survived the 1975 to 1979 Cambodian genocide, a brutal time when Pol Pot threatened to exterminate the nation's culture along with nearly 2 million of its people. Eang lost 2 siblings, a younger sister and brother, to sickness and malnutrition. In his extended family, he lost more than 50 people. He nearly died himself when he was 10, and a Khmer Rouge soldier tossed him several times into a watery pit. Lotus flowers saved his life.
When I was a child, I lived in a prison camp out in the Cambodian countryside. There were many children imprisoned there. There were many rules at this camp, and one was that if you did not work, you would be killed. One morning, I collapsed to the ground. I was too exhausted to work. A disgusted young guard grabbed me by the arm and tossed me like a stick into a pond to drown. I crawled out. He flung me again into the water. I crawled to shore once more. That only further enraged the guard. He threw me as far as he could, and I splashed into a lotus garden near the center of this pond. I quickly sunk into the depths. I was ready to die. It was time to give up. But the lotus plant raised me to the surface. The guard ignored me, and children continued to fill the mud buckets. I drifted away to sleep on a bed of floating lotus petals.
Eang, who was born on a dirt road during a U.S. bombing raid and was named Wathan, didn't just survive. With encouragement from a local TV producer and documentarian named Matt Scott, Eang decided to put his story on film. In 1999, while teaching at Chelmsford High School, he traveled back to Cambodia with Matt Scott, shooting 66 hours of film. He revisited his old home, saw the remains of the school where his father taught, and visited with relatives. In the end, he found a country he said was a wounded land, still bleeding from a hole in its heart.
In February of 1999, I returned to Cambodia for the first time since my childhood. I was accompanied with my friend Matt, a documentary producer who recorded our travels. I had mixed emotions about the trip. I was afraid.
Eang named his film Floating on Lotus Flowers.
The wondrous Mekong River, whose great current would sometimes yield up tasty dragonfish, or more ominous, giant crocodiles that would fill their bellies with many of the victims of the Khmer Rouge. The giant bayon trees with serpentine roots and great hanging canopies of twisting branches would provide foliage cover.
Eang still remembers the stench of death. When he speaks of it, he gets a sour taste in his mouth. Among those interviewed for this film was his mother.
The Khmer Rouge forced us to work by digging a bigger pond next to the small pond. We dig clay mud and put it into a bamboo basket. Watana was in the production line. His job was to pass the mud basket to the next worker. He was often tired and dropped his mud basket. One time a Khmer Rouge soldier saw him drop his basket and suddenly he charged at Watana and grabbed him by his arm and swung him into the pond. Watana cried for help, screaming, "Mommy, Daddy, help me." I was unable to come to his rescue because if I do, I would be shot and killed.
During Pol Pot's bloody regime, the Khmer Rouge troops took away many things: medicine, religion, cultural identity, and they took away education. There were no schools. And when he arrived in the U.S. in 1981, Brandon Eang reclaimed his education. And now, he's giving it to others.